Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. Thank you for joining us once again. In this segment, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Jeff Stark. He's head of U.S. Medical Immunology at UCB. He's also a rheumatologist, and he's joining us here to talk about the recent update by the ICD-10 Coordination and Maintenance Committee. Welcome to the program, Dr. Jeff Stark.
Thank you, Neil. It's a pleasure to be with you and certainly exciting to talk about this important update.
Well, as I said, of course, you're joining us here from UCB. Give us a little bit of your background and let's talk about this recent update to the ICD.
That sounds great. UCB is a pharmaceutical company based in Belgium, but also active in the United States. And one of our major areas of focus is immunologic diseases. These are diseases that are characterized by inflammation. And one of those diseases where UCB has had an interest and a focus has been axial spondyloarthritis. Axial spondyloarthritis is divided into two main groups. One of those conditions is called ankylosing spondylitis, which is a condition that has been characterized or recognized in our coding manual now for many years. But the other part of that spectrum of disease is called non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis. And until recently, that part of the disease state spectrum was not recognized in the coding manual. My role at UCB is as head of our medical affairs group within our immunology business unit. I'm a rheumatologist by training and have also practiced rheumatology clinically. And so this condition, which is cared for by rheumatologists, is near and dear to my heart.
So who's affected by this condition mostly, or is it very, very rare?
So the question of who is affected by non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis is actually an important one. And although sometimes physicians perceive this condition as rare, it in fact is quite common. Part of the reason that the condition is perceived sometimes as rare is because many of these patients remain undiagnosed or have a long and convoluted journey to diagnosis. But in fact, we believe that around 1.7 million people in the U.S. alone are living with non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis today. That's at least as common as widely recognized conditions like ankylosing spondylitis. And so certainly an opportunity for this patient population to draw greater awareness to them and recognition with the hopes that that long and convoluted journey to diagnosis will be mitigated and these patients will have a more rapid diagnosis and therefore access to treatment. There are also some interesting observations about this disease state. Although axial spondyloarthritis has been perceived as a male-dominated disease, in fact, that's not true for non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis. And in most of our epidemiologic studies, it seems that a slightly larger percentage of women are affected. And this is a really important realization for the clinical community and an insight that we hope will help to identify these patients more readily as wider awareness of that is adopted in the community itself.
Because there was no code for this particular condition, what would happen when the condition was discovered without a code?
So the question of coding practice in the past, I think, is a really interesting one. In the absence of a correct or specific or accurate code for non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, the clinical community has really found themselves forced to choose what the best fit might be from the existing coding manual. And unfortunately, what has occurred as a result of that is the community has been forced to use less accurate or less specific codes that were available to them. Certainly, I think there are multiple shortcomings of a system in which that is the common practice. One of the most important is that it has been a significant barrier to our ability to study these patients in real-world databases. As you know, data is captured about patients in the real world through electronic medical record systems in which they are identified according to their ICD-10 code. And so a system in which non-radiographic AxSpA patients are commonly mischaracterized or miscoded creates a system in which it's very difficult to identify and study them. We also recognize that the absence of a specific code and therefore the ability to accurately characterize these patients has really been a demoralizing situation for these patients. Again, the typical and unfortunate story for non-radiographic AxSpA patients is that they have a very long journey to diagnosis. On average, that ranges between 5 and 8 years. And so for such a patient who finally arrives in an appropriate care setting, is seeing a rheumatology specialist who can accurately diagnose them, and yet they find that their condition is unrecognized in the official coding manual and therefore can't even be captured in their electronic medical record, has historically been, I think, a disempowering experience for that patient.
Let's talk briefly about the process of assigning or assigning these codes. It seems to me, as a non-medical professional, that once something is identified, it shouldn't be that complicated a process to assign it a number.
It's a great question. And having been through the process of seeking modification to the ICD-10 coding manual, there have been a number of learnings along the way that have become apparent to us. I think first and foremost, it's good for our audience to know that there is a process for modification of the ICD coding manual. Of course, that manual undergoes regularly scheduled updates, but the implementation of those updates is widely spaced, with sometimes many years between one update and the next. And interestingly, ICD-11 is already in existence and has been developed and finalized by the World Health Organization, and yet the future implementation date for that in the U.S. is as yet unclear. And so because clinical understanding moves on and advances in between these widely spaced updates, there is a process for updating of the coding manual in between, happily. That updating process falls under the purview of a group called the ICD-10 Coordination and Maintenance Committee. That committee sits within the National Center for Health Statistics, which is itself part of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And so in the U.S., the purview of modification of the coding manual falls broadly under the CDC. There is a process by which requests for modification of the coding manual are entertained by that committee twice per year at committee meetings in March and September. And anyone can submit requests for modification for consideration. Now, I will say that there is a very high bar for a modification to the coding manual, so modifications are not taken lightly. And any request that is successful really must demonstrate a very high bar of clinical validity and unmet need. I think what is also helpful is when there is a consensus of expression from the clinical community. And certainly in this case, I think that our success in achieving this modification of the coding manual and the important recognition of non-radiographic AxSpA was certainly bolstered by support from the professional rheumatology community, as well as patient societies who really, in a concerted way, voiced a need for this modification.
Well, Doctor, could you give us the actual ICD-10 code for this condition?
Absolutely. So the code that has been now recognized and will become effective as of October 1st of this year is a code that previously existed in the coding manual. That code is M46.8. And previously, it was described as other specified inflammatory spondylopathies. Again, as of October 1st of this year, that code will now become the official and recognized coding option that's sanctioned for non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis. Underneath that subcategory of M46.8 are a range of more specific codes, M46.81, 82, et cetera, that will allow the prescriber the ability to identify specific anatomic areas of involvement. And so in this way, the new coding subcategory for non-radiographic AxSpA is actually quite familiar to the rheumatology community, who have a similar set of codes for familiar conditions like ankylosing spondylitis.
Where can we go and learn some more about the ICD-10 code and also about this maintenance committee?
Absolutely. So the committee itself maintains a website that is housed at cms.gov. And so the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services website actually houses all of the updates that are published by the committee. the recent notification about updates to the ICD-10 coding manual and the announcement of the new indexed codes for non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis are posted there as well and are publicly accessible and can be reviewed by anyone.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Health Professional Radio this morning.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm very excited about this update, certainly about what it means for our ability to study these patients in the future, but perhaps more importantly for the increased awareness that it will bring to this condition and hopefully the ramifications that will entail in terms of these patients achieving a more rapid diagnosis and access to treatment.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Dr. Jeff Stark. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au.